Hi guys, welcome back. Today we'll be learning about object methods. These are methods provided to us by JavaScript and they're all predefined. These help us to make our operations with JavaScript objects much easier and they're quite handy. So let's get started. I'll be covering object.assign, object.create, .freeze, .keys, .values, .hasownproperty. These 6 object methods I'll be covering. If you want to learn more about object methods, you can always go to the JavaScript documentation and learn more JavaScript methods, object methods. And I'll be covering these 6 because these are the most commonly used and you'll be using them almost on a daily basis if you start working with JavaScript. So these are quite important as well. I've opened up my JS Fiddle window and I'll start by defining an object called target. So the first one example that I'll show you will be object.assign. So let me define an object called target with a key A with the value 1, a key D with the value 3 and a key E with the value 56, and then I'll have another object called source and I'll have a key B with a value 4 and a key C with a value 5, right? And then I'll get this returned target is equal to object.assign target comma source, right? And you'll get console.log target, right? And console.log returned target. So as you know that objects, if we try to output them using document.write in the document, it doesn't really show us what's there inside the object, right? So that's why I'm using console.log in this example. And so when I have console.log, you can see there are 2 different objects that I get here, right? So the first object that we get has a key A and B and C and D and E, and the second object also has the same keys and the same values. These are both essentially the same objects, right? So that means that the value of target and value of return target is exactly the same. What's happening here is that assign basically takes source, right, and copies that into target, and then you get a new value for target. You get a completely new object, and target becomes a new object which has the values of target and source both, right? And this entire method returns a new value, which is basically the new object which has both of these combined values, and that's returned into returned target. So that's why target and return target both have the same value and they are equal, right? So I hope that makes sense, that assign basically is copying everything from source, at least all the unique values from source, and copying it into target and creating a new object which has both the values from target and source, right? So that's pretty easy to understand and pretty handy as well. Now we'll take a look at object.create, right? So let's say we have an object called isAnimal which has isHuman true. It should be false, but right, let's assume it's true right now, right? Breed is Labrador, because I want to show you something here, that's why I'm keeping it true. And I say constant dog, which is another object. I'm creating another object, and here I'll say object.create, right? Inside this bracket I'll pass animal, which is the object that I've already defined here, right? And I'll create another object inside here. I'll say human, I'll say value is false, comma breed, and value is Siberian Husky, and then we'll say document.write dog.breed, document.write animal.breed, right? Let's see what happens, right? So we get Siberian Husky and we get Labrador. So what's happening here is that we have already defined an object called animal, and it has these 2 values as human and breed, right? And now when we're creating another object called dog, we are taking the reference of animal. So we're telling JavaScript that take animal and create a very similar looking object. It won't be the same object, but it will be based on the prototype or based on animal, and it's going to have this value as human and false. It's going to have the breed with the value of Siberian Husky. So it's not the same object basically, right? So that's why dog has a breed of Labrador and animal has a breed of animal has a breed of Labrador and dog has a breed of Siberian Husky, right? So dog is an object. Again, I'll repeat again, dog is an object based on animal object that we have already defined, right? It's not the same object, but it's based on it. That's what object.create does, right? Now let me show you what object.freeze does. So let's say there's an object called obj and has a property called 42, right? And then we'll say object.freeze and obj, and then we'll try to assign another value to it. Property is equal to 33, right? And let's see what happens if we output this out. Property, so we get 42. So what freeze is doing is that once you've defined the value of property, that's 42, it's freezing the value inside this object, right? All the values are frozen. Now when you try to assign a value of 33 to object.property, it does not get assigned. So whenever you output it after that also, object.property, you always get 42, the initial value. So basically it's frozen, right? So this is quite handy many times. Now let me show you object.keys. So let's define an object called object1, and it'll have a key called a, and have something as the value, and have b, it'll have 42, and c will be false, right? So let's say I say console, or actually I say document.write object.keys. This is very handy, right? Object.keys is something that's used very often. So we'll say object1 here. Let's see what happens. So you get all the keys in this object, a, b, and c, right? So if you want to return all the keys in an object at any point of time, all you have to do is say object.keys and pass in the object inside that, right? Now object.values is very similar. If I, instead of keys, if I say values, I'll get all the values, which is something, 42 and false at the same time, right? So again, a very important and very often used function. Now let's say object1 is completely empty, right? Now let me show you how to work with object.hasownproperty, right? We're covering another method now. So let's say object1 is empty, and then I say object1 dot property is equal to 42, and then I say console.log object1 dot hasownproperty and property, right? Let's see what we get here. We should ideally get a true object1 dot, oh sorry, it'll be in the console, so sorry. Here we're getting true, right? So if I said document.write, you'll get it here, document.write, you'll get it here true, right? So what this is doing is that it's checking whether property, which is this property, is object1 has a property called property, right? You can call it anything. You can call it object dot numbers, and you can check here for the property called numbers, right? You'll get true again, right? But if you said here strings, it'll say false, because there's no property called strings inside this object. There's only a property called numbers inside this object, right? So that's how you can check what all values or what all properties does an object have. So I hope this video was helpful to you, and I've covered only 6 JavaScript object methods. There are quite a few, and but these are the 6 that are the most commonly used. So if you want to learn more, you can obviously head over to the JavaScript docs, and if you liked this video, then do subscribe, and thanks a lot for watching.